This is a fantastic device to keep people enslaved forever. And to cover this, there's a whole lot of other stories which I don't want to enter. Phenomenal tools to control populations, which has been successfully done for a long time. It depends on how we shaped ourselves. If we become wonderful human beings, it's one thing. If we have become an ugly manifestation of humanity, definitely it's an original sin. It's a mistake. Sin is too strong a word, maybe it's a mistake. So too many mistakes are being made in the world, no question. You claim to appreciate or, well, you worship the one who is referred to as the creator, but you have a huge issue with the creation. If you do not appreciate the creation, why the hell should you worship the creator? Someone who made such a bad job of this, the only way you can even be born is through sin, I think he must be banished. Now, this is a fantastic device to keep people enslaved forever. If you do not even allow them to come to terms with their biology, they'll never come to terms with anything in their life. Always they will be dependent on an institution or a person or something who claims to have connections. An Italian mafia guy was once brought to the law court and he just walked in with this fat cigar in his hand and like this he came and sat down like he's a guest. Then the judge looked at his arrogance and asked, "Do you have a lawyer?" He blew the smoke out and said, "Well, I got friends in the jury." So, people who are supposed to have connections elsewhere, you will always be enslaved to them because you feel guilty about your biology. This whole thing goes into more grosser and grosser states. So except in certain cultures, everywhere else where dominant religious beliefs were spread, in all those cultures, unfortunately, they make you feel guilty of your very existence, because that way you will always be enslaved to whatever they have set up. Something so fundamental as the menstrual cycles in a woman, she has to feel guilty about it and she's impure. Her existence is impure. Unfortunately, I want you and all the teachers of the world to understand, if your mother did not have menstrual cycles, you wouldn't be born, even if she met your father. Yes. So the life-making material, unused, is what it is. And if that is impure, your very birth is impure, that's what they're anyway trying to tell you, that your birth is impure. And to cover this, there's a whole lot of other stories which I don't want to enter. Once you're not in terms with your own physical existence, you're essentially will never ever be in terms with any other dimension of your life. This itself will cover you forever. This is a fantastic trick to keep you enslaved forever. No wonder institutions have lasted. Though they've lost their relevance, they stay simply because your existence, your very existence, you're guilty of. If you're guilty of your very existence, that means one or that which is the source of creation should be even more guilty. You are eternally guilty and that which has created all this must be even more carrying the burden of guilt. Guilt and fear have been phenomenal tools to control populations, which has been successfully done for a long time. It's time this is broken.
Dear seekers, in the journey of life, where do we find the weight of guilt anchoring us? How does fear weave its web around our hearts, holding us back? And in the midst of these tumultuous emotions, where does spirituality find its place? Guilt and fear are like two sides of the same coin, each feeding into the other, creating a cycle that can seem endless. Consider the man who fears to speak his truth, his voice stifled by the guilt of past words left unsaid or actions taken in haste. His fear is born from the guilt of what has been, and his guilt is nurtured by the fear of what might be. It is a cycle that can only be broken by understanding and acceptance. Spirituality, in this context, is not just a refuge but a path to transformation. It teaches us that guilt is often a product of our own judgments and imposed values, a disconnect between what is and what we believe should be. To move beyond guilt, one must first accept oneself unconditionally, recognizing that each action, each word, was a step in our journey of growth. It is in this acceptance that guilt dissolves, not in denial or justification, but in understanding. Fear, on the other hand, is a natural response to the unknown, a survival mechanism. But when fear becomes a barrier to living fully, it loses its protective purpose and becomes a prison. Spirituality shows us that fear, like guilt, is based on our perception of reality, often distorted by our past experiences and future anxieties. By bringing our awareness to the present moment, to the here and now, we begin to see that many of our fears are just illusions, shadows of the mind. Through meditation, mindfulness, and self-inquiry, spirituality guides us to a deeper understanding of our inner world. As we become more aware of our thoughts and emotions, we start to see the patterns that bind us in guilt and fear. This awareness is the first step towards freedom. We learn to observe our feelings without getting entangled in them, to acknowledge our fears without being controlled by them. Imagine a woman, burdened by guilt over a strained relationship with a loved one. Through meditation, she begins to see that her guilt is rooted in her own expectations of perfection, both in herself and in the relationship. As she learns to accept and love herself, flaws and all, she finds the courage to mend the relationship, not out of guilt, but out of genuine love and understanding. In another scenario, a young man paralyzed by the fear of failure avoids taking risks. Through spiritual practices, he learns to embrace the uncertainty of life, understanding that each failure is a lesson, a stepping stone towards growth. His fear, once a roadblock, becomes a compass, guiding him towards his true aspirations. Dear seekers, in the dance of life, guilt and fear are partners, leading us through a complex choreography of emotions. But it is spirituality that offers us the rhythm of awareness, the melody of acceptance, and the harmony of transformation. It teaches us that our experiences, whether tinged with guilt or shadowed by fear, are essential parts of our journey, each with its own lesson and beauty. So, as we navigate the intricacies of guilt and fear, let us remember that it is through spirituality that we find the courage to face our shadows, the strength to embrace our imperfections, and the wisdom to transform our challenges into opportunities for growth and enlightenment. As we delve deeper into this exploration of guilt, fear, and spirituality, we uncover the profound truth that our perception of these emotions shapes our reality. How we interpret and react to our feelings of guilt and fear can either confine us or liberate us. Consider the metaphor of a tree, with its roots entrenched in the soil of our past experiences. Our guilt and fear are like the roots, drawing nourishment from our memories and beliefs. But as we embrace spirituality, it acts like the sunlight, encouraging us to grow upwards and outwards, transcending the limitations imposed by our roots. In this journey of growth, it becomes clear that guilt and fear are not just obstacles but also teachers. They alert us to areas in our lives that need attention and healing. Guilt often points to our values and ethics, urging us to align our actions with our deeper principles. Fear, on the other hand, signals our boundaries and limitations, prompting us to either respect or challenge them. Spirituality offers us tools to transform these emotions. Mindfulness, for instance, teaches us to be present with our feelings without judgment. When we sit with our guilt or fear, observing it with compassion and curiosity, we often find that its power over us diminishes. We start to understand the transient nature of emotions. They come and go, but we remain, the unchanging witness to the changing play of our inner world.